Hello, everyone. Keep winning every single day, and welcome to Her Right Conversations with Dr. Christine Kozachuk. I am so happy today to have our guest speaker, Dr. Ebere Nweze from Sweden. But before I totally introduce her, what I want to do is tell you what Her Right is. Her Right is a conversation that we're having worldwide with women like Dr. Ebere to have discussions on the rights of women around the world. Her right definition is it's her right for freedom and equity worldwide from birth till death. Welcome, Dr. Ebere. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Christine. It's my pleasure to be part of this conversation.
Welcome. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Ebere before we go any further. Dr. Ebere is the Scandinavian representative for Every Girl Wins Institute. She is a gender relationship and literacy expert who is passionate about mentoring women, girls, and other unprivileged people in society. Ebere holds a PhD in literacy studies with specializations in African Caribbean, and African American women's writing and gender studies, an MA in literature in English, and a BAED degree in education English. She taught in a number of universities in Nigeria before moving to teach at Abu Dhabi University, United Arab Emirates in 2008-2012. During her 4-year stay at Abu Dhabi University, she won the Best Teaching and Best Research Awards for 2 consecutive academic sessions. In 2012, she moved to Sweden, where she has been teaching since January 2013. That is very impressive, Dr. Ebere. So we have an expert today that's going to talk about the importance of education for the girl child in every single country, and the education of sustainable life literacy, why it's so important to combine those 2 components together to make sure that every girl wins in society. Thank you, Dr. Ebere. Over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us in this conversation that we've been having about girls and women education. And of course, we know how very important it is to educate girls and women, and how a lot of statistics show that girls and women have fallen behind when it comes to education and other indices for development. So today, I feel very privileged to have a discussion, a conversation about what we need to do to be able to educate girls and women, not just education, but education for sustainable life literacy. And I would want to start by saying that education shouldn't be a privilege. It's actually a human right. And one of the reasons is because when people are educated, they are enlightened, and that boosts their confidence for success. And of course, many countries all over the world recognize this, and they recognize the benefit and the power of an enlightened mind. And because of that, some levels of education have been made compulsory. But the question is education really a right? And I ask this question because we know that in so many places, it's neither a right nor even a privilege for many people who are marginalized all over the world. And statistics show that girls and women actually remain largely marginalized when it comes to education. But we will need to work towards making education and sustainable literacy her right, which I will borrow Dr. Kozachuk's definition as her rights to freedom and equity worldwide from birth to death. And that is very important. So there is no stage in a girl's or woman's life that they don't need one type of education or the other. Now, before I continue with this conversation, I want to look at a few statistics about the state of education for girls and women all over the world. And there is proven and persistent disparity in education attainment for girls and for women all over the world. Actually, one of the studies that have been conducted by Pamela and Susan Harris acknowledged that this disparity exists. These authors surveyed education history of males and females in 142 countries for over a period of 60 years. Now, they note that there has been quite a great improvement, but of course, it is more for males than for females. And the huge gap continues to exist, even in a lot of the countries where laws and policies have been enacted to improve education. The disparity continues to exist. And of course, the year 2021 has been very, very bad for education and literacy for girls. According to UNESCO, because of COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a tremendous disruption to education, and about 11 million girls may not return to school at the end of the pandemic. Girls aged 12 to 17 are at a particular risk of dropping out of school in low and lower income countries, whereas boys are more at risk in middle and high income countries. So it's not just even limited to only girls. We also have a problem because the pandemic had affected education all across the levels. We also look at an example of a meeting by the African Union in April 2020, which acknowledges that 20 million learners are out of school. And of those 20 million, more than half are made up of girls and women. So we really have a problem in our hands. And of course, that gathering also acknowledged that girls are so much more affected because of the pandemic, because they are not in school. And because they are not in school, they are most likely to be forced into marriages, and be sexually abused. Schools sometimes protect girls, and it's a place where they have some social relationship, where they have mentoring relationships. But with almost so many schools shut down between last year and this year, girls face more abuse and poverty at home. And because of these schools, the girls have increased risk of abuse, sexual violence, trafficking, social exclusion, and forced labor. Some of them drop out and become domestic workers. Some of them are exposed to transactional sex and prostitution. And of course, many of them face heightened pressures from parents to drop out of school and get into the labor market or get married. Now, I want us to look at what we mean when we discuss education for sustainable life literacy. We have established that women are so marginalized, and we need to look at what type of education and sustainable life literacy that will be relevant for girls and women, considering the fact that so many of the things that has happened since the last year, we may never go back to normal life, and they still need to be able to have education and literacy. So I want us to look at a few things about education, and I want to look at the word from what it means actually, the holistic meaning of education from three Latin words. One of them is educatum, which means the act of teaching and training. And to a large extent, we get these through mostly formal education. We also have educare, which means to bring up or to raise someone. And then we have educere, which means to lead forth or to come out. And I will sum up the meaning of education with what the great educationist John Dewey defined education as a process of living through a continuous reconstruction of experiences. And I want you to put your finger on a continuous reconstruction on experiences, because we are going to be looking at the fact that education should be for life, literacy, and it should be sustainable. So all of these meanings actually indicate that the education seeks to nourish the good qualities in human beings and draw out the best in every individual. Education seeks to develop the inner capacities of human beings, and it should and it does equip an individual with desirable knowledge, understanding, skills, interests, and attitudes to survive and thrive in the society. So it helps an individual to be empowered, to move from one social class to another, to move from one economic level to another, if meaningfully acquired and used. And of course, individuals who are not educated are not empowered, and they often stand at the bottom of every index for measuring development and good quality of life. So we know that we can acquire education through different ways. At least we can acquire education through the formal means. We can also acquire it through the informal and non-formal education. And when we acquire education through the formal means, we have some courses we go through, some subjects we learn, and of course, at the end of it, we get a certificate and diploma with which we are supposed to find a job. But we also realize that these days, so many of these certificates, so many of these diplomas, there are no jobs out there that we can find with them. So we also look at the fact that we can have, and it is very, very difficult for most girls and women to obtain formal education, because there are so many circumstances that may exclude them. Sometimes fees are required, and where families are poor in some societies, they often prefer to pay fees for the boys rather than for the girls. There is the issue of early marriages, unplanned pregnancies, movement from one place to the other for girls and women. And of course, when any of these happens, there is disruption in acquiring formal education. Then we also have the informal and non-formal way of getting education. And we can learn this anywhere. It could be anything we learn. It can be from teaching someone how to prepare a meal or ride a bicycle. And we can learn it at the marketplace, at home, at a hotel, in religious settings. And it actually, informal and non-formal education consists of experiences. And we learn those experiences in a lifelong process. And we can also get all of those experiences from our friends, from family members, from religious and social organizations, from mentors, as well as peer groups. So it includes outdoor. There is no age limit to these two types of education, informal and non-formal education. So we have education like home education, individualized instruction, such as program learning, distant learning. We can also have computer assistant instruction, assisted instructions, and of course, there is this flexibility. And sometimes people learn at their own paces. And of course, the evaluation of the skills use different ways of evaluating them. And there is no age limit. It may be centered on vocational, practical, and usable skills. And this is actually the type of education that we want to look at, which is connected to literacy. And we also want to look at what is literacy. And there is actually no consensus on the meaning of literacy. The meaning keeps evolving. But I will have one definition by the National Literacy Trust, which says it is the ability to read, write, speak, listen, and of course, communicate effectively. But we also want to look at the fact that we can have what is called functional literacy. And this is an attempt to link literacy to a purpose. But of course, it's difficult to know the level, because the definition says that is the level of literacy, skill in reading and writing that any individual needs in order to cope with adult life. But there is also no consensus on this level, and it's difficult to measure because people need different types of literacies to cope with adult life. For example, the level of literacy needed by an adult in one country to cope with adult life will surely be different from the level needed in another country. And frankly, many people can cope well with adult life without being able to read and write. So with this definition, we can say that we can look at literacy as a kind of set of social skills. And I'm not going to be quoting because when I have some references that I need to cite, but I would rather you read that when it comes on the blog. So literacy is connected to other aspects of life. It's not just about reading and writing. And it is an activity that goes on in everyday life. It's an activity that goes. So different contexts and different domains of life require different aspects and different forms of literacies. And I want to try and identify some of the types we can look at. For example, we can have film literacy, computer literacy, agricultural literacy, cooking literacy, vocational literacy, emotional literacy, environmental literacy, internet or online literacy, technology literacy, contextual literacy, investment literacy, financial literacy, relationship literacy, moral literacy, health literacy, ethics literacy, and morality literacy. And we can go on and on and on. So when we look at all of these types of literacies, we know that our life is a continuous way of learning, because I don't think that any single person has literacy in all of these areas. So the type of literacy one needs keep changing. And that is why we all need education for sustainable life literacy. Some world organizations recognize the fluidity of literacy, and they need to keep moving and innovating in order to inject relevance to the education models that they sponsor. So what is sustainable education for lifelong literacy, which is what we are trying to look at? Because right now we have almost two types of literacy. We have academic literacy, with which you read some courses, you get some degrees, and you should be able to get a job with them. But sometimes life is not as straightforward as that. So we need to have other types of literacies at different points and contexts in our lives. And this is very important for women for a few reasons that I will advance as you listen to this presentation. So we'll say that we can define sustainability as the ability to meet the needs of the moment, while also remaining relevant for the long term. Sustainable education will be the type of learning that prepares one for the present and also lifelong survival in all contexts and through the changing phases and spectrum of life. It could be both academic and physical usable skills, or one of both, depending on the individual. or group targeted. Sustainable education prepares us to be able to acquire skills needed for sustenance at the moment and going forward. The society as we know it is becoming more complex every day. Context and life situations keep changing. So education that equips humans with the tools to think critically about various issues in life and make informed decisions about them for the benefit of the individual is very important. So one has to learn all these skills of head, hand, and heart through the process of education. So if we look at the definition and classification of education and literacy, it is quite obvious that both informal and non-formal education, as well as functional literacy, create more sites for sustainable education and lifelong literacy than actually the formal education. And when it comes to marginalized girls and groups. So why is this type of education important to girls and women? So we say that girls and women are mostly affected when formal education is interrupted. Even with formal educated women, it is quite a fact that due to different family and societal situations, they may need to work in different areas of life than the one they were prepared for through their formal education. For example, movements from one place to the other due to marriage and family relationships tend to be disproportionately weighted on women. So often when such movements happen, the girl or women needs to acquire different skills to thrive within the new environment, coupled with the burden of family and home care. Inability to acquire such sustainable skills will make the girl or women redundant in a new environment. Any skills acquired that helps the girl child or woman to work in an area they can earn a living is sustainable literacy. Any knowledge acquired to help someone fit into and thrive in a new environment or job area is sustainable life literacy. Sustainable life literacy is pragmatic skills and knowledge that remains relevant in the person's situation at every given time. Life literacy is not limited to just education for economic purposes. I would expand it to include emotional, mental, and contextual intelligence, and all such learning that equip people to become holistic and productive. Thus, acquiring vocational skill that enables one to earn a living is sustainable literacy. Mentoring a girl or woman to overcome obstacles in their lives and learning such skills is also sustainable literacy. Well, with the disruptions of the pandemic, life may never return to what we used to know as normal. So we must learn new ways of doing things. People have transited into different areas they had never tried before. And we know that girls and women are known to be very good at multitasking. For example, a woman friend of mine who had never thought of herself as a media personality has successfully launched a YouTube channel of her own. She never had any background in media, but she has learned on the job and she's getting better at it. Another woman I know who studied biological sciences up to postgraduate level has transited to running, owning a home restaurant, and she employs other girls and women. Another one who studied to become a lawyer combines her law practice with her passion, which is tailoring and fashion designing. And of course, she has launched her own outfit. She recruits young girls who she mentors and employs in her outfit. At different points in my life, I have had to combine my profession with other businesses. So we must acquire sustainable literacy. And this is one way for girls and women to actually get away from poverty. So may I remind us that those skills never leave us when we acquire them. They can be called up at different seasons. So how can we make sure her right to acquire this type of education is guaranteed? The progress of the society is the aim of this type of education. Education is for the society and of the society. So through education, the individual girl child should be provided with the required assistance to become a useful member of the family, the community, nation, and the society. So this is a collective responsibility to ensure equity in education and sustainable life literacy for girls and women. So the government has a role to play. It is widely acknowledged that girls and women are disadvantaged when it comes to formal and scheduled education due to some of the factors we have already mentioned. So the policymakers in government should look beyond formal education to encourage the other channels through which education for sustainable life literacy can be acquired by girls and women. The role of the family should look beyond formal schooling too, especially in places where such schooling requires fees that they cannot afford. Such girls and women could be encouraged to learn a trade, even if they have formal education. Girls and women should be encouraged to branch off into functional literacy that will be able to sustain them. The role of charities and NGOs. These bodies are doing their very best, but there is often lack of monitoring. Moreover, it is not enough to give monies for sponsorship of girls and women's empowerment programs. There should be concerted efforts to monitor the progress of these. They should be able to have local associations that help them to determine what sustainable literacy skills and skills acquisition programs to sponsor based on the context of the environment. And of course, I would also profile a kind of organized education missions like the ones that are organized within the medical field. For example, volunteers could be sponsored for summer camps for girls and women to learn short curricular courses of different skills according to their needs in that environment. We also have mentors, women and sometimes men. It's very important to help girls and women to make sense of the choices they have in life. And this is very important because we know that lifelong literacy is important and is holistic. If a woman has emotional issues, she will not be able to learn anything. If a woman has health issues, and she will not be able to learn so much. So we need to expose girls and women to different groups and aspects of skills through mentoring. For example, a girl or woman who is abused needs a mentor to help them overcome the mental cog and shame associated with it so that they can move forward. Because this girl or woman is already traumatized, and without a strong signposter of a mentor, may not heal enough to pursue a career or skill. The individual concerned should be willing to be pragmatic, to change and acquire knowledge necessary for sustenance. I have given examples of the people that have changed, have decided to acquire new skills to be able to remain relevant and to be able to sustain themselves even within this pandemic. So finally, we must recognize that all other girls and women's rights, the right to quality life, her right to quality healthcare, the right to equity in business and professions, the right to equity in participation in politics and governance are all embedded in the right to education. None of these other rights will ever be achieved without education. And we know that when girls and women are educated, there is a general improvement in the general quality of life. Educated women influence and impact the lives of their children from a very young age, and they are more likely to maintain a healthy home environment for the whole family to thrive. So I will close this conversation by reminding us that her right to education, her right to sustainable life literacy spans from cradle to the grave. And it is every living girl and for every living girl and woman everywhere. We must all support her rights because it will benefit the whole society. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Ebere. That was a powerful, for me with education, Every Girl Wins is about sustainable life literacy. And, that's what we stand for her right. But we are also, our organization is about, primary education to ensure that the girl child is educated. And, no matter what your age is, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, if you don't have the primary education, you can still go back to school and get that primary education also, and combining that with sustainable life literacy. Do you agree with that?
Yes, of course I do. And that's why I say that a lot of the countries have made the basic level of education compulsory.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of so primary school is compulsory in a lot of countries. But we also know that there are so many other places in the underdeveloped world that fees are charged for this particular level of education. It might be compulsory, but there are fees. There are other levies that
Mm-hmm.
make it difficult for people to get those education. And we have places where there are conflicts and people move from place to place, and women and girls are much more affected by all of these conflicts and wars and poverty and economic downturn and everything that has to do with environmental degradation. When there are droughts and all that, crops do not grow. So families do not have money. So even at that basic level, girls are still disadvantaged.
Yes.
And that's why I'm saying that we could also have what we call educational summer camps. Actually, growing up, I used to think of that I could go somewhere and volunteer to teach people for 1 month. Probably if I have a summer holiday of 6 weeks, I spend 1 month going to a place where there can be an organized way of teaching women. And not just the academic literacy skills. We should also be able to have within the team, maybe people volunteer, a team of people that can teach different things that can be sustainable for the women and girls in those environments. It could be teaching them how to make their crops yield more. Be teaching them how to do knitting. It could be teaching them how to do painting. It could be teaching them how to do fabric design, sewing, all of those things, how to plant small gardens. So any skills that the teaching could be done and finished within 3 weeks. And those people will be able to actually do those things practically.
Yes.
It's very important. So we could combine those. It's not one to the exclusion of others, but we know that there are so many places where the formal education that we get in schools is difficult for people to get them. We have people that have been in conflict and there have been movements for more than 5 years, more than 10 years. These people are living in refugee camps, moving from place to place. It's difficult to get them and say you must go to primary school in the cities. So we need both, all.
Absolutely, we do. And today, Dr. Ebere, we have a lot of people on here today. So this is absolutely amazing. And those that have joined us through Zoom with our conversation, do you have any questions for Dr. Ebere on education and sustainable life literacy? You can unmute yourself. You can unmute your video to ask the question. Any questions?
Or they can write the questions in the chat.
Yes,
Yes,
or you can write the questions in the chat and I will read that to Dr. Ebere so she can answer any questions on the education and the sustainable life literacy education for. This is our conversation. We need to have conversations about this. So this is our conversation that we get to have today.
Okay.
They're being very silent, but I'm going
I think I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Can I go on without turning on my video?
Absolutely.
All right, all right.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Ebere, for that beautiful, very educative, very eye-opening presentation, as always, of course. My question is this. Everything you said, sounds so good, so good. And from my comments, you can read that I concurred with everything you said about, especially life literacy for girls. My question is, this world, the educational system of nearly every place in the world has enthroned formal education, formal in quote. We all grew up hearing formal and receiving formal education, which means you must sit in a classroom taught by a teacher who presumably knows everything that you don't know. And then you get a certificate that qualifies you to get a job or move forward to the next level of education. But now, through the work of Every Girl Wins, something new, probably not entirely new, but I think that Every Girl Wins is making this more popular and more practical. And it's called life literacy, which is what you just spoke about. Do you think that there's going to be a collision course between what governments have always given out, the education departments have always given out, that qualifies or disqualifies, and life literacy, which now advocates freeing people to pick up knowledge wherever they find one, and actually not wait for any certificate, but move on to make life, to live life with the knowledge they have picked up informally. Do you think there will be a collision course, between governments and those that are advocating life literacy, such as Every Girl Wins Institute?
That's a great
That's
question.
my question.
Great question, Dr.
Yeah.
Great question.
Great question. I don't think there is a collision course at all. Both aspects of literacy are very important because I've given examples of people who studied something else and they also picked up knowledge of other things. And when they move to different environments, they use the sustainable literacy that they had picked up for their good. So there is no conflict. What we are saying is that we need to expand the definition of education. We need to expand how we acquire the skills we need to be sustained in life everywhere. Even Dr. Christine would tell you that at some point in her life, she has done different businesses. Probably she's still doing them. And she's still doing this. So it's not a one-track way of acquiring knowledge. Probably we used to think about that. I also gave examples of a friend of mine who just started something on YouTube and she didn't know anything about it, but she picked it up. And I also think that education has gone beyond going to the classroom and sitting and letting a teacher teach you. For example, we saw it during the pandemic. I am a teacher. I never went to the classroom for up to 1 year. The computer was my classroom. My students still learned the curriculum, everything they needed to learn. And so we know that, and with the explosion of the internet and all the technology and everything, we can acquire so much knowledge. But what we need to do is to unfreeze our minds from thinking that if we must go through only one track to acquire the education we need. There are so many different tracks. What is important is that you have to be pragmatic enough to change, to be flexible, to acquire what you need to be sustained within that time. And you also need to know that these things you acquire, it's not just for economic purposes. For example, I added emotional literacy. No matter how educated you are, if you don't know how to manage your emotions, if you don't know how to manage relationships, if you don't know how to manage civility, you will always meet a brick wall wherever you go. So you just have to acquire all the literacies in the different areas that you need to live a holistic life. What about your health? If you don't have the literacy about your health, you don't know how to maintain your health. And no matter how educated you are, no matter how highly placed a job you have, if you don't have good health, you will not be successful in that particular area. Then we're also looking at the fact that there are girls and women who do not have access to even the formal schooling, the basic formal schooling. They still need to survive. They still need to sustain their families, their lives within the society. For them, we will give these skills. We will encourage learning these skills that you don't need to go and sit in a classroom, because if you have to get a primary school certificate, you need to do 6 years of schooling. If it is disrupted, you will not have that certificate, but you can learn some other thing to be able to fit within the environment where you are until you have another opportunity to be able to complete that education. For example, I work in a place where we teach women literacy in the language through different things. We have sewing classes, people that teach sewing classes, art classes. And these women, because they find these things practical and they find these things very interesting, in the process of learning these skills, they acquire the language. That because you can't just teach them only the language without the skills. They find that these skills are important. They're able to knit table covers for their homes, and it's functional literacy for them. So the next morning they get up and go because they feel that, oh, this is what I have produced. I have been able to paint myself. I've been able to sew something for my daughter, so to knit something, a stocking, a pair of stockings for my child. So it's functional, it's practical, it's usable skills. At the same time, they are still being exposed to learning some other things. So that's what we are talking about. There is no collision, there is no conflict actually, because I gave you the example, even for me, I also have other skills that I have. And if I meet people at the level that I need to teach them those skills, I teach them those skills, because those people are not at the level I can teach them academic skills, but I still have another skill that at whatever level they are, I can teach them to do those things, and they will be able to do them and earn a living through them. So that's so there's no conflict.
I love that question and that answer. Thank you so much, Dr. Ebere. Do we have any more questions for Dr. Ebere on this subject?
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Reverend Simon. How are you?
I'm very okay, Dr. Christine. Good to hear from you, and I want to congratulate you on what you are doing over there. Can I go ahead to talk?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Reverend Simon.
Thank you very much. I want to also appreciate Dr. Ebere for that wonderful delivery. I want to congratulate you for what you guys are doing for this very cause, for Every Girl's Win. I have a question for Dr. Ebere. I listened to your definitions and I really got impressed, and I was following the discussions. But here is the question that I would like you to help me untie.
Okay.
What is the balance, or should there be a balance? Or what should we be telling our teeming young ladies who had this fear of the equilibrium that they needed to reach? For instance, someone who does not have education, that's formal education, and someone who had only formal education to the peak, but had nothing, so to say, doing as a sustaining literacy, like like you have defined, Dr. Ebere? What is the equilibrium? Should we go ahead and tell someone that there is no need to waste his time, energy, and resources looking for the formal education, or should we tell them to do both? Now, there is a follow-up for this question, because we are living in a place where, like in my own area, where people are literally not having funds to go for formal education. So it is always like choose one and leave one. So what's the balance? What's the equilibrium? I would like Dr. Ebere to really give us a sense of training these young ones that do not have funds to go for formal education. And then what can we tell those who also look down on other means of sustainability, because they now have this belief or understanding that they felt they are going to follow education throughout. And so they look at other areas of sustainability with disdain. How can we balance it? And I would like Dr. Ebere to help us on that.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. And there is no conflict, just like I have said already. What I would like to address is that when we talk about education, remember that education is all encompassing. It's all knowledge that you acquire. But what we are looking at now is that when you have acquired these knowledge, what would you do with them? So education is not to the exclusion of sustainable life literacy. So I don't want us to start to understand it like one is to the exclusion of the other. No. Well, if people do not have money to pay their way to school, it would be good to learn a skill, another skill that you don't have to spend 6 years in school looking for fees to pay. It's always better to learn a skill, something you can do practically, something you can do without an education, because if you don't have the opportunity to go to formal education, you don't have it. And I understand what you're saying, because I quite appreciate the situation. But if you don't have money to pay for education, you don't have money to pay for education, and that's what it is. And we have also been able to look at the fact that girls and women suffer so much from this lack of money to pay for fees for education, because they are the ones that most times the families want them to actually get married and go into another man's house and stay and become less of a burden for the family. So you can, what we don't want to advocate for is that if you don't have access to formal academic education, that should be the end of everything. No, you should look for some other thing that is sustainable and that you can do. And of course, get as much knowledge around that area as you can. Even if what you want to do is to plant a garden, you should be willing to learn how to be able to do it well, to be able to have the time to do it, contact people that can help you to have the knowledge to be productive in that area. Then for people that already have academic education and they feel that we don't want to do something else, well, I hope they get a job and I hope they get satisfactory jobs, but we know that it's no longer happening like that because of one reason or the other. You could be very qualified, you could have a good job, but probably for one reason you need to move or you lose the job, and many people have lost their jobs. So they should pick a skill. If you have daughters, when they finish their university education, while they are waiting to get that fantastic job, let them pick a skill. They can do how to learn how to make jewelry, how to make hair, how to make a dress, how to make different things. It will not hurt them. It will just add value to whatever they have. And whenever they need those skills, they are able to use the skills. It's always better. And of course, there has to be you can have a combination of those. Nobody has survived by just having academic education, knowledge, without having the other skills. I've talked about it, the different things that if you don't have them, and of course, you can also homeschool people. And we have online and distant education that you don't pay as much as and spend so much time. You can pick some of these degrees here and there, diplomas, certificates, knowledge that you can use. Some people can look at the YouTube and they can pick knowledge of how to make cakes. And of course, they call up people. You also have to do the public relations and say, oh, I just learned how to make cupcakes. Should I make some for your breakfast? You give them samples, and the next time, probably they don't know how to make those cupcakes, and they invite you to make that. So all of those things are literacy. How to also sell yourself, sell the things that you are making. You should be able to do all of those things. Those are the different aspects of things we can learn to be able to be successful in whatever we are doing, especially for girls and women. It's more difficult for them to break into professions, for them to break into formal employment. Of course, for the obvious reasons, we know some of them, they are more likely to move with family and leave jobs. They are more likely to stay home with the children than the males, the men. So would they stay for those years and do nothing? No, we have established that people can get education at home. They can be homeschooled. People can get education as a group of people. People can watch things, and people can connect with people to teach them skills that they do not know. And that's what we do within this institution. We ask people can volunteer, and you can be linked up with people that you can help to acquire knowledge. Dr. Christine is already doing that. There are people that she's already teaching how to do, grow their businesses, how to package their businesses. And those people do not need to come to the US to learn those skills, but they should be willing to learn those skills and able to also apply them. Accountability is very important. So I don't know if I've answered your question. There shouldn't be a conflict. There shouldn't be this or that. If you don't have access to one, you should have access to the other. Even if you have, but the best is to actually have access to both.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think you have done justice as always. You have rightly said it. We are learning, even at this conversation, we are also learning. And sometimes we ask those questions because of most of the people that we are mentoring. And so when we gather those this kind of advice, it will help us to always put them through. I will want to really thank Dr. Christine for Every Girl Wins Academy and what you guys are doing. May the Lord continue to strengthen you and grant you strength to do what you are doing. Thank you very much. I'm still in and listening to you guys. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Simon.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Dr. Guan or Tamika, does anyone have any questions for Dr. Ebere?
Hello.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Christine, for putting this together, and thank you for Dr. Ebere for the good talk. We've learned a lot, I've gathered a lot from what you've said. While Pastor Amos was speaking, I wasn't sure if I would still have the opportunity to say this, so I quickly put some things in the chat. However, since I now have the opportunity, I was going to mention homeschooling. And while I was typing, I heard Dr. Ebere talk about that. That's another way that people are able to give education to their children. Like we know some parents move a lot, and they move with their children. But if they're able to give homeschooling, home education to their children, it saves the children the disruption of education. And so when we talk to women, of course, it's what men and women do. But I know our reach here, our focus here is on the women. So when we talk to the women in our lives, we can explain to them how they can give their children home education. Like I have a lady who might ordinarily find it difficult to pay the kind of school fees she needs to pay for her daughter. But I said to her, you can homeschool her. Why don't you go online? There's a lot of resources online. So this is a kind of advice we can give such people. So whether people are moving from one place to the other because of work or for whatever other reason, they can do homeschooling, and the children would still be able to get the kind of education that other children are getting within the school environment. And then the second point, thanks again, Dr. Ebere, for that wide definition of literacy, which encompasses so many aspects of literacy. And I just mentioned there in the chat space that there is also grief literacy, which we may put under the health literacy that Dr. Ebere has mentioned. A lot of people are affected by grief from day to day. Bad things happen in our lives. There might be little things or big things, but they cause us to mourn, to grieve. And if people have the knowledge of what to do when bad things happen to them, that would be very helpful. I think that's an aspect of literacy that we need to be passing on to the women, and well, the men too. The men are here too. But I'll say to the women that we come in contact with, either by way of mentoring or having any form of influence in their lives, or having any form of access to be able to speak into their lives, that, hey, look, bad things happen to everyone, but you have a way of controlling your reaction, your response. And I know that, Dr. Christine, you've shared some experiences. I've listened to a few of them. So to teach people how to get themselves up again and keep going, and know that grief doesn't have to break them or be the end of their lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. That was great. Great information. Thank you. Thank you. So Delia, let me unmute you. You have a question. Oh, 1 second. Let me get you unmuted. Oops, I have to have her. She has her hand up. Galan?
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
I am here. I want to thank the great Dr. Ebere for her contribution. You see, when people talk about the African literacy, it's like they are speaking to me, because we have situations here that we might not bear, but we need to live with. Tribal people in Suriname don't have the literacy that we always have. Like the person that just spoke, if you can read, you can homeschool your children. But there are women that cannot homeschool their children because they do not have access to nothing. How do we do to the tribal community? The women that do not have they have the other literacy, how to live with your man, how to grieve. They can teach you a lot. I learned from them as well. But how do we deal with the nowadays challenge of tribal people, which Suriname have, indigenous and African tribes we do have here after slavery? I myself am a tribal person. So how do we do that for Suriname? How can we assist one another? Dr. Ebere.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. And before I answer that question, I want to appreciate the contribution of Dr. Lubusola Eshet. And I know she was speaking from an expert point of view, so you can actually Google her. She has published on the area, helping people to overcome grief. And she also has a YouTube channel, so you can just take her name and Google her and check out the materials that you can get from her. And then coming to what Dr. Fidelia said, I quite appreciate the difficulty of, because some of these people are so poor, some of these people are so removed from technology that they don't have access to anything to be able to, they don't even have the knowledge or the literacy to look at the internet. They don't have the possibility of internet. They don't have phone connections. They don't have power connections. And these are people that we shouldn't forget. And that's why I talked about probably summer camp missions, volunteers to go into those places. And if the people, you can stay and mentor a few people and give them resources, and those people can now go ahead and try to teach the other people. There has to be an outreach. There has to be a going. There has to be a physical thing. For example, if Dr. Fidelia knows people that she trusts that can go and is safe to be able to go, you can ask around, do you think you have 2 weeks within your summer holidays to be able to come to this place? This is the kind of knowledge that we expect you to impact on these women, on these girls. Do you have the 2 weeks? Or if you don't have the 2 weeks, do you have the ability to help and sponsor someone who is willing to go? Because there has to be a going. We are all in the developed world, and we are talking about, we have all these resources, online this and online that. I know that there are so many places where there is no electricity, where there is no network connection for phone, so you can't even access anything. The only way you can do anything is to go physically and to take materials and to teach with those materials and to leave those materials behind, and then probably organize other sets of people to go again. I know people go a lot on medical missions. Probably we should also begin to think about people that can go on educational missions. So that's one of the things I think we could begin to look at.
Great question.
Great answer, Dr. Ebere. You know, I think I need to connect to you
Okay.
one-on-one with Dr. Christine. We need to elaborate on this. There is a medical mission for real in Suriname. We don't have that education mission as it should be.
Okay.
Someone in Holland tried to work on this and everybody was against him. He's a psychologist. And no, they didn't want to contribute. He got some older teachers to work with him. He was successful with some children, but the majority still suffers. We need this mission. The means, because we talk about remote places. We have a lot of rapids. We have mountains. We have rivers to cross, literally rivers to cross. And we need to go by air for 2 hours within the country. 1.5 hours. And these people don't have electricity and access to communication, telecommunication. It is still an issue in my country. We are now talking about it. That they say there is no way they can do internet properly in the interior of Suriname. And we are wealthy. We have a lot of gold. We have a lot of oil. And we're still poor in education. Dr. Ebere and Dr. Christine, I believe we need to talk. I cannot take more time, but I love everything that is about education literacy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
What we'll do is we'll connect and see what's a great time for all three of us to connect. And you both are on my advisory board. So, and you know, as representatives of Ebere Nweze. So we'll connect with that and, you know, see how we can get some, you know, that done. That's great. So any further questions from anybody? Any further questions? Anyone have any further questions that they would like to talk about? Any questions? Okay, let me see if there's any questions online for you, Dr. Ebere. Let me check that out real quick. Oops, let's see. No questions online. You did a fabulous job, and I want to thank everyone that came on the registered and came on the Zoom to be a part of the conversation. You know, doing it Facebook Live and being here is two totally different things. So to be a part of the conversation, you know, always register to be here every month. We will be having another one next month. With one of the Every Girl Wins international representatives, and a new topic for her right. So I'm very excited for that. Do you have any last minute words, Dr. Ebere, before we close?
Yeah, I just think I want to thank everybody who has listened, and I want to thank everybody who has made contributions, asked questions. It helped us to have a real conversation. Just like you said, it's not just a presentation. We should have conversations about these things. And I hope that we continue the conversations and we continue to look out for the women in our lives. If every one of us have one thing or the other to help the people living around us with, then those people can help other people. Those people can help other people. We don't know how far that particular person that we helped could go ahead or go along in helping other people. So I want to thank you so much for all you do, and all the other representatives and all the people who are working in the different areas of literacy, and health literacy, grief literacy, emotional literacy, vocational literacy, and probably we'll have to see if we can put a curriculum together. So I'm not about to look at all those forms of literacies and how we can actually communicate them, and probably think if we can inject something into the government policies to see, look, you need to also pay attention to these types of literacies. They are important for the whole being of the society and the well-being of the society. So thank you so much. And I look forward to further conversations, private conversations, and online conversations.
Absolutely.
And congratulations again for your awards and for awarding people.
Yeah, congratulations to you. Congratulations to you, and for becoming a World Civility Ambassador. It was really great. Looking forward to it. Now, Cecilia, she says, Dr. Ebere, that is very great and eye-opening. Keep it up. And Dr. Galan says, I second that, Dr. Ebere, or our curriculum has to come. And let me just see if you, Dr. Samuel says, informal learnings were called artisans then, but many of them are kings today. My husband, which I say is my biggest cheerleader, one tribe at a time, then one elder to pass the information to another tribe. Jean says, thank you again so much. Needed to hear this conversation continue being the change. So thank you all for watching today. And thank everybody that came into the Zoom and had the conversation with us. And we look forward to seeing you next month for another great topic with her right. And remember, it's her right to freedom and equity worldwide from birth till death. So it is her right to sustainable life literacy. It is her right to primary education. It is her right to healthcare literacy. It is her right for economic literacy. It's her right for entrepreneurship literacy. So as we keep moving on, and I thank those that are here today, because many of them I have worked with, for being the rock for Every Girl Wins, because without them, I can't do what I'm doing today for every girl out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
In meeting.